Hello and welcome everyone. Happy New Year. My name's Hayden and I have the honor and privilege to be your moderator today. I'm glad to see everyone is back and just to see how SharePoint can take your business to the next level throughout this new year. And as always, I hope you're having a fantastic Thursday. A few things to mention before we jump in. You may have already noticed that when you joined that your mics are muted. So if you have any questions or comments, we do encourage you to utilize the QA chat function during the presentation. That'll give our team a chance to be able to reply to you and answer you in real time. But once the webinar does conclude, we will be moving into a live Q&A, which we will then allow users to unmute their mics and ask questions to our team in real time. But more on that afterwards. At this time, I'm actually going to hand it over to Michael to give you guys a brief message. Over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Hayden. Welcome, everyone. Glad you're here today. If you've been here before, you know this, but I'll take 30 seconds for those that might be new. Microsoft's rolling out new features around SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, Entra, Power Platform every couple of weeks. And so what we try to do on this is make this the most of it very business user specific. So you will see things today. Our hope is that it will empower you to be able to go see a feature that would bring value to your organization and you to go and employ that. It may be things that you see today that you might need some help with your IT folks to do that, but at least you'll have an education on what it is. And we're always here to help if you need that as well. So I do encourage you. We've got staff available as people are presenting. Use that chat feature, and you can ask questions along the way. People will chime in, or the presenter will, when they're done, and answer those questions. And as Hayden said, we'll do the Q&A at the end as well. So welcome to the January webinar. Hayden, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michael. As you guys can see, we have a jam-packed schedule today with a wider range of topics, including a few new features or at least updates of current existing features that you should be made aware of. Starting us off today is Leona Lamont, who is teaching us about the approvals integration feature that has come to SharePoint lists and soon to be document libraries. They'll go over that here shortly, as well as afterwards, Leona will then give us an overview on the share control, what that really means and things to look out for there when sharing within SharePoint. Following Leona, we have Ken Lewis, who will be showing us how to insert SharePoint metadata into a document with quick parts. If metadata tags are a possible pain point for you and your organization, this might be just what you need. It's one of many examples that we can help streamline some metadata. Katie will then teach us about the new updated Hero web part. Another branding looks and feels feature has been updated within SharePoint, and she's excited to show you all the new layouts and styles that come with that. And then last but certainly not least, John will go over the brand new editorial card web part and how you can go ahead and implement it as of today within your SharePoint pages and news. So we have a lot of ground to cover. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into the first topic of the day, the approvals integration feature in SharePoint document libraries and lists, taught by Leona. Over to you, Leona.
All right, thank you, Hayden. Yep, today we'll be covering the integration piece with approvals into libraries and list. As of right now, like Hayden said, this is available to SharePoint list and will be hopefully rolled out by March 2025 for document libraries. Some terminology you'll hear today will be the idea of approvals. Approvals are the kind of action that exists in the Power Automate platform and also in your Teams app. So if you ever go into Teams and you look for approvals, that's where those actions kind of reside. They will kind of have simple outcomes of either approved or denied, and you can always make them more robust than fully in Power Automate. But for this instance here, it'll be very simple. Also, the ribbon. The ribbon is the control in a document library or a list that allows you to add new items, upload things, and such. There'll be additional controls that are available to us there. So we'll go ahead and kind of walk through the steps on how to get this deployed to your list or libraries, and then how to engage with it along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my site right here. So this is a SharePoint list as of right this second. It has no other metadata other than the title field. So to enable this feature on one of your lists or libraries, you will want to start off by selecting the automate feature here, and there will be a section called configure approvals. You select that, this little prompt pops up here saying, hey, you're about to turn on the approvals. This adds an extra column to your view. It adds an extra column onto your display form. Just be aware that you're adding this to your list. We say, hey, we acknowledge that. We hit the apply button. It creates a brand new column called approval status that has some functionality, which we'll cover here in just a moment. And then now we're good to go. So now that we have the approval process on, again, this is going to be very basic. So this might be for a simple thing like maybe PTO requests and such. This is not meant to be like a full document control thing. Very basic, very simple, straightforward. But to engage with this, there's going to be about two different ways you can kind of start approval. So let's say I submitted one of these items and I wanted to start the approval process. You can either select the not submitted value here, which will open up a little form, or if you select the record, there will be a request approval action button now in your ribbon as well. So either one of these will take you to the exact same thing that we just saw, whichever your preference is. So when you do that, you get a little prompt that says, give it a name. So this will be the name of the approval action inside the approvals app in Microsoft Teams and in Power Automate. So give it whatever name you want to do here. So we'll call this one, approval one example request. I'm going to go ahead and type in my approvals. I'll go ahead and type myself into here. Now, you also have the capability of adding multiple users. So if I said, hey, I want John to also be included on this, there is an additional option that is available to you, which is require response from all approvals. What that means is to say that we need approval from both myself and John for this to be completed and signed off fully. Or if I just say, I don't want that, I just want whoever can sign off on this first, we'll go ahead and capture their approval. Next, we also have the details. This will pass on the information that I type in here. And I say, you know what, I really need this to be approved. And I can go ahead and I hit the submit button. So once I hit submit, we'll get a little prompt at the very bottom of the screen saying create an approval request. This will update here in a second once it kind of completes this action down here, showing pending request. So we'll just give it another moment to kind of propagate out there. So now we can see that it has been requested. If I was to select this now, we have the different options available to us. If I was just the consumer of this data and not one of the approvers or the requester, I would be able to just to see a breakdown of currently where is the responses at. Currently, we're still pending responses from either Leona or John. And so as of right now, I would just be kind of consuming that data. As an approver, I have the capability of leaving my comments here. I can either approve or reject this. And lastly, as the owner of this process, because I'm the one who initiated it, I have a cancel request option. So again, based off of who you are and selecting this value here, you kind of have different options available to you. Also, what will happen inside of Microsoft Teams, you'll get a new notification saying that there has been a new request. You can also go to the approvals app as well and see your request here. And so there you have the capability of clicking directly to the item in question that you're approving. You can go ahead and leave your comments here, give your approval or rejection. If also to be aware of something, that if you do have multiple people requiring sign off on a single request, if a single person rejects it, it acts as a rejection for all users at once. It will capture their comments as well. So let me go ahead and move my MS Teams back onto here. And I'm going to go ahead and reject this and say, this isn't right. Please fix this. So I'm going to go ahead and say reject. It's rejecting my request. And if I go back into SharePoint in a second, this will be updated to reflect that rejected outcome. And also those comments will be passed down to me. As also the requester, I will receive another activity notification saying that the request was denied. And then you can go ahead and kind of review why it was denied and such. So again, it may take a moment or two for that webhook to get pushed back down to SharePoint with that information being provided. There is also the idea of, let's say I did make a request and I started the approval process. So let's just go ahead and trigger this one once more and say, go ahead and send it to myself. I'll go ahead and hit the submit button. So I'm going to go ahead and start submitting it. And so if I was to try to make a modification to this request, let's say I wanted to put a 1 inside that title, and I hit the save button. You will get a prompt saying this has already been submitted for approval, and editing it will cancel your request. You will need to resubmit this. This is just to ensure that, hey, if you make a request, you're approving that one that has been submitted. You cannot make modifications to it midway through the approval process. You will have to resubmit. By hitting this apply changes, it will turn it back into the non-submitted stage and will kind of terminate the outstanding approval actions that exist out there. If by chance in the future you do ever wish to disable this feature on your list or library, you can go back to the Automate tab here, configure approvals, and disable this. And that will kind of terminate that. Now, your approval actions will still kind of stay out in a limbo state. Now, again, if you do modify these records, it will also terminate those. So just be aware that, hey, this is initiated and it's good to go there. Also, again, as of right now in its current state, it's very limited. So everything that we just showed you today is going to be the limitations of what can be done with this out-of-the-box version of approvals. So that concludes my first session today, talking about the document library and list approvals. Again, just be aware that the document library is currently not available to everyone and should hopefully, based off the roadmap, be available to everyone by March 2025. The next thing that I'll be covering today will be the overview of the share control. Now, this is going to be specifically related to the SharePoint side of things. In previous webinars, we've covered the idea of the share control policies in Office 365, which allows you to determine if you are sharing kind of internally or externally, and what level of external sharing do you have. Today, we're going to be talking about the idea of limiting who can share with inside your organization at a site collection level. Things that you're going to hear today are going to be permission levels. These are going to be Microsoft's predefined and or custom options to allow you to say what can users do, like the idea of members being able to edit content, which means they can edit, delete, create, list libraries, documents, and list items, while full control is managing permissions and everything below that, while readers or visitors only have read rights, which means they can only consume your data. Those are all permission levels. And then also SharePoint security groups will be a container inside of SharePoint that allows you to put users in and then apply permissions to them. So we'll go ahead and start off with our site once more. So with that, there is an option inside of site permissions that allows you to say site sharing. So again, this is still going to be somewhat applicable to your organization's policies on sharing externally or internally, but these are going to determine who on your site can share or not share. And I'm also going to walk through the idea of what does a site owner mean versus a member and of the nuance that comes along with it. So out of the box, Microsoft has it as site owners, members can share files, folders, and the site. People with edit permissions can share files and folders. There are 3 options here. We also have site owners and members, and people with edit permissions can share files and folders, but only the site owners can share the site. And lastly will be only the site owners can share files, folders, and the site. So again, a prime example might be saying, hey, I think that this should be able to have the capability of letting some people share, maybe the site owners specifically. We don't want the members to share because that gives too much power to them off the bat. So in essence, let's just kind of walk through this and say, let's turn on the only site owners can share files, folders, in the site. And we hit the save button. Now we have that policy in place. So if that was the case, let me just go to one of our document libraries real quick. If I was a member or with edit rights and I was to try to click this share button, the capability of sending a link would be disabled for me as a member of the site. But as an owner, I still can go ahead and share. Also, the same thing with the copy link. The only option that will be available to them is people with existing access, which is just pretty much saying, here's a hyperlink to this record versus these other 2 options, which is saying people within dataBridge, which is sharing with somebody else within inside the organization, or people that I choose, which I determine who those users are. So again, that kind of limits on what you are sharing, which again, sharing has a lot of extra things that come along with it, like the idea of breaking inheritance, which again, might be too much power to your end users. Now, what is an owner and what is a member or editor type of idea? So if we go into our site permissions and we go into advanced permissions, your site has by default 3 initial groups, in which as of this moment, we don't have presented here. We normally would have a name of your site owners, name of your site members, and name of your site visitors, which those have corresponding permissions automatically applied to them, which is full control, contribute, or edit, and then read. Now, readers, again, we're going to ignore them because they don't have sharing capabilities, but if you're a member or above, you will by default. Now, with the capability of sharing and the idea of what is a full control and what is limiting there on what can be shared by who, it really comes down to permission level. So if we were to click on permission levels up here, and we get the breakdown of those permission options available to us, and if we were to click on full control has a lot of options available to it to say, what does a full control person do? They can manage lists, they can manage site permissions, they can manage personal options. They have all these little checkboxes checked. But if we were to go into maybe contribute, they have far less options selected. And so there's actually going to be very specific options within this list here that determine on who can share or with those predefined owners or members options. So for the editors, as long as you have the edit capability, this one right here, in a permission level that's applied to you, you will have the capability of sharing with edit rights via that share option. If you are a owner, owner is specifically based off the manage permissions option selected here. So again, you could create your own permission levels that meet very specific requirements to say, hey, maybe on this one library, we want them to be able to manage permissions, and I create a custom permission level specifically for their needs. You can do that. So just be aware, again, edit and the membership of SharePoint groups really don't matter. You could create 15 SharePoint groups that all have full control. All 15 groups would have the capability of sharing on that site. Only, again, if by chance you adjust their permission levels to say that they do not have the managed permissions right, is really what matters here. So I know that that's a lot of information for a lot of you, and I apologize, but I do wish to just inform you to be aware that the options for sharing is specifically related to permission levels on your sites. So again, I know that's a lot of information. Hayden, I'll go ahead and pass it back on to you.
Perfect, Leona. Thank you so much. A couple of things I want to add for the approvals that was shown by Leona. This is absolutely perfect for simplistic content approval processes. Like Leona said, it is out of box, so it is easy to kind of get set up and created. It's perfect for collaboration, like team collaborations. If you have a marketing team that needs to have a internal approval process just to have people check over things or make sure grammar's looking good or the photos and things of that nature. That's perfect, easy to set up, good to go. It does have limitations when it comes to the dynamic side of things. So if you need to have, if this is over this amount, it needs to now go to this person or dynamically check for specific managers or groups. At that point, you'll want to still use the Power Automate side of things, which we can definitely help you out with. But for a collaboration site, this is easy to spin up. You guys will definitely be able to get that up and going. And for the shared control, I mean, that's actually really great to know. This would be great for maybe board portals or committee sites where you need some shareholders or stakeholders to be able to edit documents or see documents, but you don't want to give them the ability to share documents out from SharePoint. So locking down those and knowing how the shared controls work, very valuable. So thank you so much, Leona. That was awesome. All right, our next segment is taught by Ken Lewis, who will be teaching us on how to insert SharePoint metadata into a document using the quick parts. Over to you, Ken.
Thanks, Hayden. So the major issue that we see with clients when it comes to metadata is document libraries allow you to add content to them, but the metadata will lag. And that is a constant and persistent issue with a lot of our clients. And this technique that we're going to discuss today is a method for you to give your client, officers, your employees and staff an easy way to manage that metadata in line with their workflow. So the metadata doesn't get in the way, it actually assists them with their document planning and their document content management. So what the feature is you can surface the metadata that's associated with a document directly in the document as part of either the Word document or the PowerPoint itself. So in this case here, I have a project charter. I have some metadata wrapped around it showing the project status, the start date, the end date. I have a lookup field for a project manager, and I've got a single line of text field for a project manager. And I can open that document. I'm going to open it in the desktop version of the app. And I can see that information here directly on the title page of the document. This is the exact same information in both places. So this is not a super copy of the information or static text. It's dynamically representing those properties that are associated with the document, which means if I change them here, the exception of one of the field types that we'll look at, it will actually change inside of the library at the same time, and vice versa. So one of the features that I like about Word is that Word actually integrates very tightly with the SharePoint interface. And so you can see here under the view, I've got a properties tab, and that will show the properties panel. And so these are the properties surfaced as well. And this is how you would get to the properties if you didn't include them directly in line in the document like we have here. So we can see I have a document category field here, and it's not part of what I have here, but I have project charter. And so what I might want to do is replace this with the document category so that if I set it here, the document is then tagged as the type of material that it actually is. So I'm going to walk you through the steps and how you would do that. There is no additional preparatory work. I didn't have to do anything to the library to enable this feature. It's on by default. So all I have to do is open up my document, and then I can come in and I can replace the document value that I have, and I can go to the insert menu, and I can go to the quick parts menu here, and then I can go to document properties. Now this document properties panel is going to be there even if you're not using SharePoint, because there are document properties that are associated with a document, things like the author, the title field, and some other metadata. Those have always been part of the metadata that's been associated with a Word document since Microsoft Office was first stood up many, many years ago. But if I have my document associated with a SharePoint list or library, then I have content that's available out of the metadata that's in that library. And we can see I have surfaced here the project start date, the project end date, my PM fields. I've got my status field. I've got the date, the title field again, the date it was published, and so on. So I have all of these values, including document category. And so I can surface document category, and then I can set that value. And I can say, you know, this is going to be a charter that I'm working on, and now I have the fact that it's a charter. I can style that if I want to, so I can make it bold. I can make it italic, I can change its size, and I have the same ability that I would to work with that content as if it were native to the document. But the difference that I have is I see my document is synced up, I've got everything saved, and so now I can switch back to my library and I see it's tagged as a charter. And if I were to change it in the reverse, it would change in the document as well. So I could go ahead and close this out. And then working from here, I could bring up the properties panel. So I can come here and bring up properties. And then I can make the adjustment to the properties. So I'll come down here and say, oh, that wasn't the charter. I was actually working on a scope statement for that document. And so now I'll save this out. And now when I go in and I edit the document, should hopefully reflect here in a second. There it goes. Now it's a scope statement. So the ability to embed the metadata that you need your staff to collect directly in the headers, the footers, the title pages, or an appendix page of the document itself means that you can, while they're working on the actual content of the document, be populating the metadata of the document. And again, I didn't have to turn anything on in the library to make this work. All I had to do was make sure that I had my metadata associated with my library and then embed that into my documents. If I had actually constructed a template and I had already done the pre-building of the fields and then I'd associated that template with a content type, every time my staff go to use that content type, they would have that information available inside the document and they could then tag those fields. Again, think of it as the title page of the document. They could just fill out the title page, set who the PM is, set the dates, give some other information about the project. And as long as that's accurate in the document, it's accurate in the library and vice versa going forward. There are some limitations to this. So the first limitation is you're going to want to use the desktop client. The web client will display the information, but interacting with it is not fully lit up at this point in time. Microsoft is still reliant, because you're in the web, they're reliant on you to use the properties panel that we looked at. The actual document itself, you can see the information, but you can't touch the fields. In the thick client, there are field types, and one of them is the person or group lookup field. Here, for example, they're not fully integrated, and that's because they're complex fields. So there are a couple of complex field types. The lookup field and the person field are two that come to mind right out of the gate. Manage metadata also falls into that because it's a class of lookup where this feature will show the value, but it won't actually present the value as editable in the document. So a couple of the fields, you'll still have to use the properties panel. Luckily in Word, we have that again. Just go to view and you have your properties available to you here. So you can completely fill out the document. But for all of your single line of text variants, so the single line of text field itself, your choice fields, your date fields, those are all available to you to dynamically edit. So the date fields, for example, here, they can have the date picker exactly the way you're expecting. So you're really not losing any functionality. You're gaining the ability to manage your information in two places simultaneously and make use of that information live in your documents so that it's not just metadata, it's actually part of the document content. And that is going to drive people filling these things out because they obviously want their documents to be correct. So they just work on the documents as usual, and you get the metadata as a very positive byproduct of that process. So with that, I'll hand things back to Hayden.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ken. Metadata even today is what I feel like is an underused superpower across all platforms. And so anytime that we can link dynamically the metadata up together to cut down on duplication, to make sure and ensure clean data, all the better. This would be perfect for any purchase orders, or if you need to send out any quotes to clients and need to make sure all the metadata is the same one-to-one, this could be exactly what you're looking for. So thank you so much, Ken, for going over that. It's time to now take a look at the updated Hero web part, the new layouts, the new styles, and who better to show us than Katie. Over to you, Katie.
Thanks, Hayden. So as part of SharePoint's creator updates, they've added a new feature to the Hero web part. So you might have seen the layers or tiles that have been available previously. So now the new update is that they have a carousel option. So it's really exciting that there's 3 new styles that go along with that new layout as well. So it's going to help improve engagement. It's going to help you organize your content better and just enhance aesthetics in general. So let's take a look at what that's looking like now. So because it's a Hero web part, it's actually available for the full width section. So that's what you're seeing here. I have a few samples of the different styles that are available. So you have the diagonal option here. You have the image layover, a text box, and then as another option, this actually allows you to upload stream videos. So you could actually watch them right on the screen. Very fancy. So let's take a look at how to set that up. So you're going to put the page into edit. And you're going to add the Hero web part. So you could just start typing in Hero and select it right there. So you could see the 2 previous layout styles and then this new one. So you could simply add a link, an image, or even a page. And what's actually nice if you do add a page to show you is that it's going to pull the banner that that page uses, the title of that page, and then automatically link it in a call to action here. So it's very simple to add. There are full settings. If you come up here to edit the properties, you're going to see the option to allow it to autoplay. It defaults to be on. On is about 4 seconds for each slide. From there, you could choose the drop-down for the styles. With some of the options, it will give you additional settings. The image layover has the overlay opacity. Not all of them are going to have that option, as you could see, but the text layover allows you to choose where that text box is going to be. With each of these slides, you have 4 different options for messaging. You have a topic up here, which is going to show over here, a header and a description, and then an optional call to action. One feature that's really nice about this is, I don't know if you've previously used a hero. If you did just want to showcase a message or a picture, if you clicked on it, it would automatically take you to that picture. So one of the things that are nice about this is that you can just kind of display messages without it having to link anywhere. So you could see if you're clicking on this, it doesn't have to do anything. So there's a lot of new options to create really engaging pages with this, and I hope you all have a lot of fun playing with it.
Thank you so much, Katie. So if you've been attending our webinars up to this point, you'll know that SharePoint has been really pushing a lot of new look and feel features that can help you shape your SharePoint to make it look and feel more personalized to your organization, including the branding center that rolled out last year, as well as background section colors. Now this, it's all very exciting. Our goal is to do our best to keep you guys updated on all these new features as they continue to roll out, and all of the new capabilities that you can do. You know, I always say that there's a couple of points that if you get correctly within your SharePoint, it keeps it alive, user adoption there, a lot of traffic continuing within your organization, and that's fresh content, but that's also fresh looks and feels. And so even if you take a page that has everything that you need on it and just update some of these branding web parts to make it look and feel a little bit better, it can do a lot for your end user integration. So very exciting that that's happening. In the same conversation, another kind of looks and feel branding conversation worth going over is the editorial cards and the new web part that got brought to us. And we're actually going to hand it over to John to walk us through that. Over to you, John.
All right. Thanks so much, Hayden. And thank you for everyone for joining in today. And as Hayden mentioned, this new editorial web part is going to tie in really nicely with the new hero that Katie just presented here. What this is, it's a brand new web part that really takes away some of the rigidity and structure that SharePoint's had for many years. For a long time here, clients and customers of Microsoft that use SharePoint have been a little bit disappointed in the fact that everything feels like it's stuck in a box, right? And that everything is very rigid and you can't get super creative with it without customizing, custom code and things like that. Microsoft has finally listened and they have put out this new editorial web part, which gives it more of a loose website look and feel where you can get pretty creative here. You can move things around on that page. You can stretch things out so it doesn't have to be stuck in a certain parameters. Really, really nice. I think people are going to enjoy this a lot. So with that being said, let's go ahead and I will share with you my very nerdy Star Wars site that I've built here. we scroll down here, we're going to see I've actually got right here, I have an editorial card that I've built and put here, and it's going to link us to a new page. And everything on this page, 100% is built out with editorial cards. Great tools. You can see that as we get down here, like this one is much larger than the others. Everything isn't stuck in these, everything is in the exact frame like you're used to on SharePoint. Things can be a little bit more loose and friendly to use, right? So we've got here, so this one is a text overlay, right? The whole image is a link. All the text is here. You have a button to take you to wherever that links to, whether it is somewhere internal on your SharePoint or if it's an external site. You can link to anywhere you'd like. Right here is a split screen where you've got an image and a quick headline. And then below the image, you have text and more information about what you want to present. These can be links similar to what Katie presented in the hero part, or they can just be information and imagery, right? So here is a text overlay with a color box with a option there. You can change the opacity of the box here, so on and so forth. Well, all we want to do here is we can go in, let's edit, and let's just create a brand new editorial card and see what that looks like. We're going to come down here and I'll add a new section. And I'm going to add in editorial card. And it gives you this default image off the bat. It gives you a category name, a headline, and you can describe what your story is about. Let's go ahead and change the image. Let's make this more in line with the rest of the page here. Let's add this guy right here. Cool, we like that. There's our new image. We can change the headline to, I don't know, whatever we like here. Boba Fett. And we can add the headline, right? We'll just add in some regular random information here. We can actually, very nicely, we can change the font, make it larger, smaller. We can change the color if we feel like it. We can add in, if we wanted, to have a quick paragraph about what is going to happen here. We can add that in. And you can see that the part expands as you add more information. So again, you're not locked into this rigid structure that you're used to, right? Let's go over here and we can change the way this looks. This is the image overlay. Here's a color block, and here's the split option. We can also we can change where the font is, centered, right justified, left justified. We can even move it up and down in the page. Let's see, let's take out a little bit of text here just to make it more obvious. There we go. And yeah, we can make it stuck to the top, to the bottom, centered, or we can even do a distribute vertically, which justifies the text top to bottom in equal spacing throughout all the items. Okay. We could change the overlay from dark to light. We can change the opacity if we want. So right now we've got a button. We could change that to an icon. We could change it to just text for the link, or the entire card can be a link. We don't need a button. You can just click anywhere on the card to take you where you want to go. So let's just we'll put in a sample link right here and pop that in. And let's just give this a try. We'll republish this. And there we go. Not very pretty the way I made it because I kept editing things, but there we go. We have an editorial card, and you can build an entire page, your entire site with these, and have a lot more flexibility than you're used to, right? And here we go. That takes us right to a link about Vampire, just for fun. But that is what you're looking for in editorial card. I will go back and note that it may or may not be in your tenant right now. These are set to roll out late January, and everyone should have them by mid-February. I was lucky enough that it was already here for me. So I've been playing with it all week, testing it out and playing with it, and having a lot of fun there. So hopefully it's already there for you or will be shortly. And with that, I hand this back over to Hayden.
Perfect, John. The nerd in me approves of all that Star Wars messaging, but thank you. Yeah, superpowers when it comes to branding. SharePoint's been doing a whole lot for the branding. They're doing a whole lot for different co-pilot things, different AI, and a lot of new updated features that currently exist, but we just want them to work a little bit better. So a lot of good stuff coming this year already on the roadmap. We'll keep you guys updated as that comes. I just want to say thank you to all the presenters today. You guys did a great job. And with that, that does conclude the learning portion of today's webinar. I hope we've been able to spark some new interest for functionality for you and your teams that you guys can go and explore. Please be on the lookout in your email for our next webinar, which will be in February. We're back on the month-to-month track, and we look forward to learning with you next month. Before we segue into the QA section of the webinar, I do want to remind everyone that all webinar notes, slides, and recordings will be found on our learning portal for easy access to everything discussed today and our prior webinars as well for all of our SharePoint support clients. If for some reason you don't have access or you'd like to gain access to this learning portal, please reach out to us after the webinar. Our learning portal is where you and your team get all the materials for all past, present, and future webinar materials, recordings, all the good stuff. So with that, we'll now segue into our open live Q&A form. If you don't plan on staying for the live Q&A, thank you again for learning with us today. On screen, we are showing some instructions on how to raise your hand to ask a question to one of our presenters. Once your hand is raised, your mic will be unmuted and you'll be able to ask questions. The questions will be taken in order of the hand raised. So we will now allow that to happen now. Saw a thumbs up. I love the thumbs up. It's good to see you guys in this new year. Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate y'all. Good to have you guys out here. We'll give a couple more minutes. And I will say, I'm even one of those, even though I like to talk. Sometimes I get a little bit anxious when I want to ask a question, but I'm like, maybe this isn't important, or maybe I'll make a mistake or anything like that. Don't worry, this is just us. We're here to help any way we can. So even if it's a small question or a large question, feel free to ask it. It'll be good. All right, I see a hand raised.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hey, how's it going?
Yes. Hi, my name is Eder. Actually, I don't have a question related to the webinar, today's webinar. I have a question about other thing, which is, do you guys provide training for SharePoint?
Yes, we do provide training for SharePoint, and training is a broad subject. It can either be end user training or organizational wide tenant training for maybe IT staff, or maybe even a site specific training for content managers and moderators. So yes, we can help train at any level that you need.
All right. So to learn more about the level of training, so do you have, in which part of your website I can go in and check, or if you have any email account in order that I can send an email
Yeah, that's a great question. So,
Fill out the
oh,
contact form at our, on the website, and we'll get back to you promptly.
Okay, contact form. Okay, thank you.
You got it.
all right. I see another. Thank you so much for asking. I see Sue has her hand up.
Hello, can you
Hey,
hear me?
yeah. Hey, Sue.
Hi, how are you today?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. This is the first time that I've attended one of your trainings. It was forwarded to me by my director.
Mhm.
And so I was kind of, this is a brand new experience. So I'm glad that somebody asked about training because I know that's a big thing too. I do have a question also about permissions because security has been a big thing recently. And where I work, they're not as familiar with how the security, so it's kind of a play with it and we'll figure it out kind of thing.
Yeah.
When you're talking about permissions and security, you can set up various buckets for those security and permissions issues, right? It doesn't need to be general, like full control, read, etc. You can select who can do what, right?
That is absolutely correct. And you can create some buckets in your AD group, nest them within your SharePoint buckets. You can make it very functional. One of the biggest pain points when it comes to permissions is either one, it's done improperly or kind of ad hoc, which creates a short-term fix for a long-term big issue. And then you can also have the problem child of it's high maintenance, that every time a new document or a new library exists, someone has to go in there and tweak and change it. And so there are ways, best practices that you can kind of implement it so that once it's set up, it kind of runs like a well-oiled machine. And you won't have to really worry about it too much long term. But yes, it is possible to create those groups and in
Yeah.
buckets. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I can see that as a problem child because I was thinking the same thing myself. It's like every time I've asked for permissions from one SharePoint site to the other, it just becomes problematic.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have to dictate, well, who has permission to grant permission, right? And if
Exactly.
you give it to everyone, then who knows who has those documents? And it becomes kind of a cybersecurity issue long term, which is not a good problem to have. So, yeah, creating the right buckets and being efficient in that is definitely the way to go. And it's better to get that down pat early, so that you guys can continue. So let us know if there's anything we can help you with, okay?
Absolutely. Now, do you need to be a client of dataBridge to be able to access all of the learning videos that are out there?
I'm gonna actually let Michael answer that one. Michael, do you mind?
Yeah, no problem. Hey, Sue, we do this SharePoint Concierge. It's basically an added value for our support clients. If you want the recording of today's video, we're happy to share that with you. But our support agreements are month to month. You can engage us for as little as 2 hours a month. And that gives you not only access to us to help with things like permissions or those kind of things, but it gives you access to all these resources as well.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's very helpful because I know my manager will ask about that.
You got it.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Sue.
Thank you.
Sharon. Hey, Sharon, how you doing, girl?
I'm good. Hayden, how
Hey,
are you?
I'm doing great. Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year. So I've got a question on the share function that Leona was talking about. Is the fact that you can give certain levels, site owners, permission to use the share button and not other people, is that the piece that is new that you can select?
It's not per se kind of new. It's just more of this has kind of been a continuous thing that I know that when we engage with clients, like a requirement they want to go, hey, in essence, right now when we get to our site, we have sharing policies as a tenant wide, but then at the site level, people can still share. And again, how do we potentially limit that? So today was more of an informative kind of to say, hey, this is how you potentially limit this. These are actually the key mechanisms that determine who can share at a site level based off of permission levels. So it's not per se a new feature. It is kind of relatively new in the sense of the last like couple years, but it isn't like a feature that just came out today type of idea.
Okay, because I I understand it better now that I watched your segment on this. So Hayden, you know where I'm going with this is that I will be calling you because we need to get that set up on our SharePoint. So thank you.
Beautiful. Absolutely. It's good seeing you.
You too.
Righty. And I hope I'm not missing anyone else's hand. I don't see anyone's hand. Anyone else have a question that needs to be asked before we conclude today's webinar? Give a couple more seconds. All right, guys. Well, I believe that's all. I'm checking all the chats to make sure all questions got answered. It looks like it. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude the webinar. Again, we'll see you guys next month. Be on the lookout for that email coming out. And in the meantime, if you have any additional questions or need help with anything, feel free to reach out to us and we'll make sure you're taken care of. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next month. All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.